What is it about Star Wars that keeps fans coming back decade after decade? Is it the clash of lightsabers echoing through cavernous halls, the epic space battles that pit rebels against the might of empires, or perhaps the ancient wisdom of the Jedi, offering glimpses into a philosophy that feels both otherworldly and strangely familiar? Certainly, these are all parts of the saga's enduring appeal. But there's something deeper, something harder to define. It's the mysteries. From the enigmatic Force to the shadowy agendas of the Sith, Star Wars is a story built on unanswered questions and half-revealed truths. These elements draw us in, urging us to piece together the puzzle for ourselves. Over the years, countless theories have emerged. Some challenge the very foundations of the saga, while others weave subtle new layers into the fabric of the story. Did Palpatine truly create Anakin Skywalker? Could Yoda have defeated him and changed the course of history? And what if the prophecy of the Chosen One wasn't about Anakin at all? These questions aren't just fun thought experiments, they reshape how we see the galaxy. But more than the answers themselves, it's the pursuit of these questions that makes Star Wars so timeless. The galaxy far, far away is a vast playground for imagination, a place where even the smallest detail can spark endless speculation. And as we dive into the most compelling and mind-bending theories in the saga, consider this. The power of Star Wars lies not in its certainties, but in its mysteries. Let's begin this journey with a haunting reminder of the Jedi Order's fallibility, one that lies quietly in the archives of their own temple, the story of the Lost 20. As much as the Jedi Order is revered for its wisdom and heroism, its history is far from perfect. Beneath its ideals of peace and harmony lie cracks, moments of failure that foreshadowed its ultimate downfall. One of the most poignant of these is the story of the Lost 20, Jedi Masters who turned their backs on the Order. But were these Masters deserters, or could their departures reveal a deeper truth about the Jedi's blind spots and rigidity? Deep within the hallowed halls of the Jedi Temple, a haunting gallery stands as a reminder of those who chose to walk away. Known as the Lost 20, these Jedi Masters voluntarily left the Order, their bronzium busts displayed silently in the temple archives. To the Jedi, these statues were monuments to failure, a rare and somber acknowledgement of those who had abandoned their sacred duty. Yet, for all their infamy, the Lost 20 remain an enigma. What could drive Jedi Masters, pillars of wisdom and discipline, to forsake the very order they dedicated their lives to? The official story is simple: disillusionment. The Order believed these Masters lost faith in the Jedi path, unable or unwilling to uphold its ideals. But as with so many things in Star Wars, the truth is far more complex. Could the Lost 20 have sensed flaws in the Jedi's philosophy, flaws that would later contribute to the Order's demise? Take Count Dooku, the most infamous member of the Lost 20. Before his fall to the dark side, Dooku was a paragon of Jedi excellence, a skilled warrior, an intellectual force, and a Jedi Master of the highest rank. Yet over time, he became disillusioned. He saw corruption festering within the Republic and the Jedi's refusal to confront it. To Dooku, the Jedi had become too entangled in politics, blind to the greater will of the Force. His departure wasn't born of ambition, it was a rejection of an order he saw as stagnant and compromised. But Dooku's story is just one piece of the puzzle. What of the other 19 Masters? The records of their departures are scarce, almost as if the Jedi wanted their legacies erased. Yet their bronzium busts remain, each one a silent witness to a moment of dissent. Some fans speculate that these Masters might have sensed the growing influence of the Sith, warning the Council only to have their fears dismissed. Others suggest they were simply questioning the Jedi's rigid detachment, tired of suppressing the emotions and connections that give life meaning. Perhaps the Lost 20 weren't rebels, but visionaries. In a galaxy teetering on the brink of chaos, they may have recognized that the Jedi's absolutism, their refusal to embrace complexity, was a fatal flaw. The philosophy of the Jedi often demanded the suppression of feelings, bonds, and individuality in favor of selflessness and detachment. But in doing so, did they overlook what truly gives the Force its depth, the interplay of light and dark, passion and reason? Consider the bronzium busts themselves, carefully crafted, meticulously placed. To the Jedi, these statues were cautionary tales, yet from another perspective, they could be seen as indictments of the Jedi Order. Each bust represents a master who walked away, not because they were weak, but because the Order failed to adapt to the galaxy's ever-changing complexities. The Lost 20 stand as a testament to the Jedi's inability to listen and evolve. Their departures are not just historical footnotes, they are warnings. Warnings that the Jedi's inflexible adherence to tradition, their unwillingness to embrace change, would ultimately sow the seeds of their destruction. Imagine for a moment if the Jedi had heeded the warnings of the Lost 20. Could they have prevented the rise of the Sith? Could the Republic have been spared from corruption? These are the kinds of questions that linger in the minds of Star Wars fans, adding layers of poignancy to the saga. The story of the Lost 20 reminds us that even the greatest institutions are not immune to failure. It also raises a compelling question. If the Jedi couldn't recognize their own flaws, what other truths might they have misunderstood? One of those truths lies at the very heart of Star Wars, the prophecy of the Chosen One. The prophecy of the Chosen One looms large over the Star Wars saga. It's a riddle wrapped in mysticism, a tantalizing glimpse into the Force's deepest secrets. A Chosen One shall come, born of no father, and through them, ultimate balance to the Force shall be restored. For generations, this prophecy shaped the decisions of the Jedi, guiding them as they sought to maintain peace in a galaxy teetering on the edge of chaos. But what if their interpretation of the prophecy was fundamentally flawed? What if it wasn't a promise of salvation, but a warning of something darker? From the moment Qui-Gon Jinn encountered Anakin Skywalker on Tatooine, he was convinced the boy was the Chosen One. Born of a virgin mother, Anakin possessed a midichlorian count so high it defied understanding, a connection to the Force unlike anything the Jedi had seen. To Qui-Gon, this was proof. Here was the being destined to bring balance to the Force. But what exactly does balance mean in the context of the Force? And did the Jedi ever truly understand the prophecy they revered? The Jedi, in their rigid devotion to the light side, equated balance with the eradication of the dark side. To them, balance meant harmony, purity, and the absence of corruption. They believed that the Sith, with their lust for power and chaos, were the sole disruptors of this balance. But this perspective reveals their arrogance. The Force isn't merely a tool for the Jedi to wield. It's a living, dynamic entity that encompasses both light and dark. True balance might not mean the victory of one side over the other, but the coexistence of both. Anakin's journey seems to support this interpretation. Far from eradicating the dark side, he succumbed to it, becoming Darth Vader and unleashing terror across the galaxy. For the Jedi, this was a catastrophic failure, proof that Anakin wasn't the Chosen One after all. But what if his descent into darkness wasn't a deviation from the prophecy, but a fulfillment of it? By embracing both sides of the Force, Anakin may have been embodying the true essence of balance, a concept the Jedi were unwilling to accept. Consider the moments of ultimate resolution in the saga. In Return of the Jedi, Anakin redeems himself by destroying Emperor Palpatine, sacrificing his own life to save his son. This act eliminates the Sith and brings a temporary peace to the galaxy. However, it also marks the end of the Jedi Order as it was once known. Luke's new Jedi philosophy, glimpsed in later films, suggests a shift away from the rigid dogma of the old order. Could this evolution represent the true balance the prophecy foretold? Some fans even speculate that the prophecy wasn't about Anakin at all. What if the Chosen One wasn't a person, but a lineage? The Skywalker family, with its profound connection to the Force, has shaped the galaxy's destiny for generations. From Anakin's fall to Luke's rise, from Leia's strength to Rey's final confrontation with Palpatine, the Skywalkers have been at the center of every pivotal moment. Perhaps the prophecy wasn't about a single act of balance, but an ongoing struggle, a cycle of light and dark playing out through the generations. Others propose an even darker interpretation. What if the prophecy wasn't about balance as we understand it, but about upheaval? The Chosen One may not have been destined to bring peace, but to disrupt the galaxy's status quo, forcing it into periods of destruction and rebirth. This interpretation aligns with the Sith philosophy of power through conflict. From this perspective, Anakin's role as the Chosen One wasn't to restore balance, but to accelerate the galaxy's inevitable cycle of collapse and renewal. The true meaning of the prophecy remains elusive, shrouded in mystery and open to interpretation. Was it a promise, a warning, or a cosmic riddle that even the wisest Jedi couldn't unravel? Perhaps the Force, in its infinite complexity, resists such simple definitions. One thing is certain: the prophecy, like the Force itself, continues to inspire questions and debate, and in those unanswered questions lies the magic of Star Wars, a story that, much like the galaxy it depicts, will never truly end. When we think of Qui-Gon Jinn, the image of a wise and defiant Jedi Master immediately comes to mind. His connection to the living Force made him an outlier, someone who often clashed with the rigid traditions of the Jedi Council. It was Qui-Gon who discovered Anakin Skywalker, the boy he believed to be the Chosen One, destined to bring balance to the Force. But was Qui-Gon's belief in Anakin merely a product of faith, or did he foresee a far more complicated destiny, one that required not only light but darkness to fulfill the prophecy? Qui-Gon's understanding of the Force was fundamentally different from that of the Jedi Council. While they focused on the cosmic Force, a grand, future-oriented vision of the galaxy, Qui-Gon's connection to the living Force was deeply rooted in the present. He trusted in its flow, even when it conflicted with conventional wisdom or Jedi traditions. This perspective may have given him insights into the prophecy that eluded his peers. From the moment Qui-Gon met Anakin on Tatooine, he was certain of the boy's extraordinary potential. Born of the Force itself, Anakin's unprecedented midichlorian count was a sign that he was no ordinary child. To Qui-Gon, this was the ultimate proof that Anakin was the Chosen One. But Qui-Gon's faith in Anakin wasn't blind. He acknowledged the boy's fear and emotional attachment, traits that the Jedi Council viewed as dangerous. And yet, he remained steadfast in his belief that Anakin's destiny was intertwined with the prophecy. But what if Qui-Gon's wisdom extended even further? Some fans theorize that Qui-Gon may have foreseen Anakin's fall to the dark side, not as a failure, but as a necessary part of the Force's plan. Balance, after all, isn't about the triumph of light over dark. It's the coexistence of both. Could Qui-Gon have understood that Anakin's journey through darkness was essential for him to ultimately restore harmony to the galaxy? Consider this. Qui-Gon's final words to Obi-Wan were a plea to train Anakin. This wasn't a casual request. It was the dying wish of a man who saw a path that others could not. Qui-Gon was aware of the risks involved in training someone as emotionally driven as Anakin. He had heard the Council's warnings and even witnessed the boy's struggles firsthand, yet he chose to believe in Anakin's potential. Why? Perhaps because he understood that the prophecy was never about avoiding darkness, but about overcoming it. Anakin's fall to the dark side is often seen as a tragedy, a deviation from his destiny as the chosen one. But what if it was a fulfillment of the prophecy all along? By becoming Darth Vader, Anakin gained an intimate understanding of the dark side, a perspective that no Jedi could achieve without falling. His eventual redemption, marked by his sacrifice to destroy Emperor Palpatine in Return of the Jedi, brought an end to the Sith and restored balance to the Force. From this perspective, Anakin's journey wasn't a failure, but a transformation, one that encompassed both the light and the dark. Qui-Gon's wisdom also challenges the Jedi's rigid philosophy. The Council's insistence on suppressing emotions and attachments may have blinded them to the true nature of the Force. Qui-Gon, on the other hand, embraced the complexities of life. He believed that the Force wasn't about strict dichotomies, but about harmony, an ever-shifting balance between opposing forces. His faith in Anakin reflects this belief, suggesting that he saw the Chosen One not as a savior of light, but as an agent of balance. Qui-Gon's legacy extends beyond his life. In the Clone Wars series, we learn that Qui-Gon was the first Jedi to discover the path to immortality through the Force. His teachings shaped Yoda and Obi-Wan, influencing their understanding of the Force long after his death. This connection to the Force's deeper mysteries hints at a wisdom that transcended the limitations of the Jedi Order. Ultimately, Qui-Gon Jinn's hidden wisdom invites us to see the prophecy of the Chosen One in a new light. Perhaps balance wasn't about eradicating darkness, but about understanding it. Through Qui-Gon's perspective, we are reminded that the Force, like life itself, is complex, dynamic, and endlessly mysterious. And in trusting Anakin's destiny, Qui-Gon may have been the only one who truly understood the will of the Force. The galaxy far, far away has always been framed in terms of opposites, light versus dark, Jedi versus Sith, good versus evil. Yet, not everything fits neatly into these binaries. Amid this duality lies a path less traveled, one that transcends the extremes of both light and dark, the philosophy of the Grey Jedi. Who were these enigmatic figures, and what does their existence suggest about the true nature of balance in the Force? In the Jedi Order's view, balance meant the suppression of the dark side. Their teachings insisted on strict adherence to the light, to selflessness, and to detachment from emotions. On the other hand, the Sith embraced unrestrained passion and personal ambition, often to the point of destruction. Both sides, in their extremes, created imbalance. But the Grey Jedi rejected this dichotomy. Instead, they sought harmony, an understanding of the Force that encompassed both its light and dark aspects. The Grey Jedi are not explicitly canonized within Star Wars lore, but their philosophy resonates in the actions and beliefs of certain characters. Figures like Qui-Gon Jinn, Ahsoka Tano, and even Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi embody elements of this ideology. These individuals challenged authority, questioned tradition, and prioritized the will of the Force above rigid codes. They remind us that wisdom is often found in questioning, not blindly following. One of the most compelling aspects of the Grey Jedi is their interpretation of balance. While the Jedi saw emotions like fear and anger as dangerous paths to the dark side, the Grey Jedi understood that these feelings are natural, even necessary. To suppress them entirely, as the Jedi demanded, was to deny an essential part of existence. By acknowledging both the light and dark within themselves, The Grey Jedi believed they could achieve true harmony with the Force. Consider the prophecy of the Chosen One. If balance is the ultimate goal of the Force, does it not require the coexistence of light and dark? The Grey Jedi reflect this idea in their rejection of absolutes. They recognize that light cannot exist without shadow, just as creation is meaningless without destruction. This philosophy aligns with ancient concepts of duality, such as yin and yang, where opposites are seen not as enemies, but as complementary forces that together form a whole. The Grey Jedi's emphasis on individuality and free will also sets them apart. While the Jedi demanded strict adherence to their code, and the Sith demanded loyalty to a master, the Grey Jedi trusted their own instincts. They followed the Force as it flowed through them, unbound by the dogma of either side. This autonomy allowed them to navigate the complexities of the galaxy with a clarity that the Jedi and Sith often lacked. But walking the path of a Grey Jedi was not without its challenges. To balance light and dark required immense discipline and self-awareness. The risk of falling entirely to one side was ever present. Yet perhaps this struggle is what made their philosophy so profound. By constantly striving for balance, the Grey Jedi mirrored the nature of the Force itself, an eternal interplay of opposing energies. Some fans argue that the Grey Jedi philosophy is the natural evolution of the Force's will. As the galaxy cycled through eras of Jedi dominance followed by Sith resurgence, the Grey Jedi represented a synthesis of these extremes. In a sense, they were the galaxy's hope for breaking free of the endless conflict between light and dark. However, the Grey Jedi were not a formal order. Their philosophy was more of an individual journey, one taken by those brave enough to question the status quo. Their scattered existence makes them difficult to define, and perhaps that's the point. They were not bound by structure or tradition. They were fluid, adapting to the needs of the galaxy and the Force. The philosophy of the Grey Jedi invites us to reconsider the very nature of balance in the Force. Is harmony achieved through purity or through the acceptance of complexity? If the Force itself encompasses all aspects of existence, perhaps the Grey Jedi, with their willingness to embrace the full spectrum, came closer to understanding its true nature than any Jedi or Sith ever could. The Grey Jedi challenged the traditional narratives of Star Wars, reminding us that truth is rarely found in absolutes. And as we ponder their elusive philosophy, it leads us to another group who quietly challenge the galaxy's dichotomies. The unlikely heroes whose influence shaped the fate of the galaxy far more than we realize. The mysteries of the Force often seem too vast for even the greatest Jedi or Sith to comprehend. As we explore the balance between light and dark, one figure emerges as a chilling enigma: Darth Plagueis the Wise. While his name is spoken in hushed whispers, his shadow looms large over the galaxy's history. Could his mastery over life and death have shaped events far beyond his supposed demise? Few figures in the galaxy's history are as shrouded in mystery as Darth Plagueis. His name, whispered only in the darkest corners of the Sith's legacy, became the stuff of legend, an ominous tale of power, betrayal, and the quest for immortality. But could Plagueis' influence have extended far beyond his supposed death? And did his mastery over life and death leave a legacy that shaped the galaxy more profoundly than we realize? Darth Plagueis was a Sith Lord unlike any other. While most Sith focused on achieving dominance through destruction, Plagueis took a more calculated approach. His obsession wasn't merely with power, it was with transcending mortality itself. According to Palpatine's recounting in Revenge of the Sith, Plagueis' studies allowed him to manipulate the Force to create life and prevent death. This ability, if true, would have made him unparalleled among the Sith and a potential rival even to the Jedi's understanding of the Force. But Palpatine's words leave us with more questions than answers. For one, Palpatine's account of Plagueis' death reeks of convenience. He taught his apprentice everything he knew, then his apprentice killed him in his sleep, Palpatine claims, with an air of mockery. If Plagueis had truly mastered the ability to cheat death, how could such a simple betrayal have succeeded? Was Palpatine lying to manipulate Anakin? Or is it possible that Plagueis faked his own death, retreating into the shadows to continue his work undetected? Some fans theorize that Plagueis' influence never truly ended. Consider the origins of Anakin Skywalker, a child born without a father. Palpatine's cryptic hints about his master's ability to create life suggest that Plagueis could have been involved in Anakin's creation. If true, this would mean that Anakin was not just the chosen one, but also a deliberate experiment, a living embodiment of Plagueis' quest to control the Force. It also raises the chilling possibility that Anakin's destiny was orchestrated from the very beginning, a pawn in a game played by a Sith Lord long thought dead. There's also the question of Exegol, the shadowy Sith stronghold introduced in The Rise of Skywalker. The Sith eternal cult, with their obsession with preserving Sith knowledge and reviving Palpatine, shares striking parallels with Plagueis' ambitions. Could Plagueis have laid the groundwork for this cult, ensuring that his vision of the Sith endured even if he did not? The existence of cloning technology and experiments on Exegol further aligns with Plagueis' interests, suggesting that his teachings may have influenced the galaxy long after his supposed demise. But what makes Plagueis' legacy truly fascinating is its philosophical implications. The Sith, by their very nature, thrive on conflict and destruction. Plagueis, however, sought a form of control that transcended these cycles, a mastery over life and death that would make him invincible. In doing so, he challenged the very nature of the Sith. Was his pursuit of immortality a betrayal of Sith ideals, or was it the ultimate expression of their philosophy? Plagueis' story also serves as a stark contrast to the Jedi's understanding of the Force. While the Jedi embrace the natural flow of life and death, trusting in the will of the Force, Plagueis sought to dominate it. This dichotomy highlights the eternal struggle at the heart of Star Wars, submission to the greater whole versus the individual's desire for control. It's a struggle that defines not just the Jedi and Sith, but the galaxy itself. Ultimately, Darth Plagueis' legacy endures not just because of his supposed powers, but because of the unanswered questions surrounding him. Was he truly killed by Palpatine, or did he transcend death in a way that no one has yet understood? Was Anakin Skywalker a product of his experiments? And if so, what does that mean for the prophecy of the Chosen One? And most intriguingly, does Plagueis' story suggest that the Force itself can be bent, manipulated, and perhaps even conquered? These questions keep Plagueis' shadow alive, his influence felt even in his absence. And as we turn our attention to Palpatine, the apprentice who rose to eclipse his master, we're left to wonder, was Palpatine's rise the culmination of Plagueis' grand design, or a betrayal that shattered it forever? The rise of Emperor Palpatine is a tale of manipulation, ambition, and unparalleled mastery of the dark side. His cunning strategies and unrelenting quest for control reshaped the galaxy, but his true brilliance may lie in something far more insidious: his mastery of Sith alchemy. One of the most debated mysteries in Star Wars lore is whether Palpatine played a direct role in Anakin Skywalker's creation. If true, it reframes the Chosen One not as a miracle of the Force, but as a dark experiment by the Sith. Anakin Skywalker's origins have always been shrouded in mystery. Born to Shmi Skywalker with no biological father, Anakin was hailed as the fulfillment of the Chosen One prophecy, destined to bring balance to the Force. But could this miraculous birth have been manipulated? According to Palpatine's account of his master, Darth Plagueis, the Sith possessed the ability to influence midichlorians to create life. This chilling revelation raises the possibility that Anakin wasn't a product of destiny, but of design. Palpatine's relationship with Anakin offers subtle clues to support this theory. From their first meeting, Palpatine nurtured Anakin's ambitions, preying on his insecurities and subtly molding him into the perfect apprentice. If Palpatine had indeed created Anakin, this bond takes on an even darker meaning, a perverse sense of ownership over the boy's destiny. It's not hard to imagine that Palpatine saw Anakin not as a person, but as a tool, a living embodiment of the Sith's ultimate plan. Further evidence of this manipulation lies in Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, a comic series where Anakin has a vision of his mother surrounded by dark tendrils of the Force, suggesting Sith interference in his conception. While visions in Star Wars are often metaphorical, this imagery adds weight to the idea that Anakin's origins were tainted by the dark side. If true, it reframes the prophecy of the Chosen One as a grand deception, orchestrated by the Sith to infiltrate and ultimately destroy the Jedi. Yet Palpatine's potential creation of Anakin wasn't without complications. Despite his descent into darkness, Anakin's eventual redemption in Return of the Jedi represents a rejection of Palpatine's influence. If Palpatine did create Anakin, this act of defiance becomes the ultimate irony. The Sith's attempt to control the Force instead fulfilled the prophecy, bringing balance through Anakin's final sacrifice. This theory also hints at a larger pattern in Sith philosophy, their obsession with immortality. Palpatine's experiments on Exegol, revealed in The Rise of Skywalker, suggest that his quest to conquer death extended far beyond cloning. Could Anakin have been one of Palpatine's first experiments in essence transfer, or a vessel for his dark will? If so, it adds a new layer of tragedy to Anakin's story, a being born not of destiny, but of manipulation, designed to serve as a pawn in the Sith's relentless pursuit of power. Palpatine's mastery of Sith alchemy forces us to reconsider the nature of the Force itself. Did the Force allow this manipulation as part of its grand design, or was it an act of rebellion by the Sith, disrupting the balance of the galaxy? And if Anakin was created by Palpatine, does that mean his actions were predestined, or did he ultimately reclaim his agency through his redemption? These questions bring us to the broader legacy of Sith ideology. Palpatine's manipulation of life and death wasn't an isolated ambition. It was part of a much older doctrine, the Rule of Two. This philosophy, established by Darth Bane, ensured the survival of the Sith through cunning and conflict. But as we delve into the Rule of Two, we must ask, was it merely a survival strategy, or did it hold a deeper, darker meaning? Two there should be, no more, no less. One to embody power, and the other to crave it. These words, spoken by Darth Bane, became the foundation of a Sith philosophy that shaped the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Known as the Rule of Two, this doctrine was born from chaos, a response to the infighting and ambition that once plagued the Sith. But was it merely a survival strategy, or did it hold a deeper, more profound purpose within the Sith's relentless pursuit of domination? To understand the Rule of Two, we must first look at the Sith before Darth Bane's reforms. In ancient times, the Sith numbered in the thousands, their power spread across empires and battalions. But with great numbers came even greater conflict. The Sith, driven by ambition and greed, turned on one another, their hunger for power leading to endless cycles of betrayal and war. The Jedi didn't need to destroy the Sith. Most of their downfall came from within. Darth Bane saw this destructive pattern and recognized its futility. He realized that the Sith's greatest enemy wasn't the Jedi, but their own inability to cooperate. By reducing the Sith to only two, a master to wield the power and an apprentice to seek it, Bane created a system that concentrated the dark side's strength while minimizing internal conflict. This streamlined hierarchy ensured the survival of the Sith, even in the face of near extinction. On the surface, the rule of two appears to be a practical solution to the Sith's problems, but its true brilliance lies in the relationship it fosters between master and apprentice. The master holds power, but the apprentice is driven by ambition, constantly seeking to surpass their teacher. This tension creates a dynamic where only the strongest survive. Each generation of Sith grows more cunning, more ruthless, and more powerful, ensuring the Order's strength is never diluted. But the rule of two wasn't just about survival. It was also a reflection of the Sith's ultimate philosophy. The Master represents order, control, and consolidation of power, while the apprentice embodies chaos, ambition, and rebellion. Together, they mirror the duality of the dark side itself. Their constant struggle reflects the Sith's belief that conflict is the engine of growth, that true strength can only be forged through adversity. This philosophy reached its zenith with Darth Sidious, the most powerful Sith in history. Sidious not only upheld the rule of two, but used it to manipulate the galaxy on an unprecedented scale. He didn't just fight the Jedi, he infiltrated their ranks, turning their greatest hope, Anakin Skywalker, into his apprentice. Yet even Sidious couldn't escape the rule of two's inherent instability. His apprentice, Darth Vader, ultimately betrayed him, fulfilling the cycle of power and destruction that defined the Sith. Ironically, the rule of two's success was also its greatest flaw. By concentrating power in a single line of succession, it made the Sith incredibly resilient, but also incredibly fragile. If both the Master and the apprentice were destroyed, the Sith would be wiped out entirely. This vulnerability became their undoing when Vader turned on Sidious, destroying them both and seemingly ending the Sith's legacy. But did the rule of two truly end with Sidious and Vader? The rise of the Sith Eternal on Exegol suggests otherwise. This shadowy cult, devoted to preserving Sith knowledge, operated in secret, amassing resources and conducting experiments that far exceeded the scope of the rule of two. Could this have been an evolution of Bane's philosophy, or a rejection of it altogether? The Sith Eternal's devotion to collective power, rather than individual ambition, stands in stark contrast to the rule of two's principles. The rule of two also forces us to question the nature of power itself. Is conflict truly the path to strength, or is it a cycle of destruction that ultimately consumes its participants? The Jedi believed in harmony, in trusting the will of the Force to guide them, while the Sith thrived on domination and control. Yet both philosophies, in their extremes, failed to bring lasting balance to the galaxy. Ultimately, the rule of two is a testament to the Sith's adaptability and their paradoxical nature. It was a system designed to preserve their strength while embracing their inherent instability. And while it succeeded for over 1,000 years, it also sowed the seeds of their eventual destruction. As we move deeper into the shadows of Sith ideology, we arrive at Exegol, the hidden stronghold of the Sith Eternal. Here, the rule of two gave way to something even darker, a legacy of collective power and manipulation that redefined the Sith's role in the galaxy. Deep in the uncharted unknown regions lies Exegol, a planet that seems more myth than reality. Swallowed by eternal storms and veiled in secrecy, it served as the dark heart of the Sith Eternal, a cult fanatically devoted to preserving Sith ideology. But Exegol was more than just a sanctuary. It was a symbol of the Sith's ability to endure, adapt, and reshape their legacy. What role did Exegol and the Sith Eternal play in the galaxy's darkest moments? And how does it challenge our understanding of the Sith? The Sith Eternal, as revealed in The Rise of Skywalker, was far more than a group of devotees. This shadowy organization operated in the shadows for decades, preserving Sith knowledge, constructing fleets, and experimenting with dark side alchemy. While Palpatine's survival and resurgence are often seen as a testament to his individual power, Exegol reveals a far more collective approach. The Sith Eternal's operations suggest that the Sith philosophy had evolved, or perhaps reverted, to an older, more expansive structure. Exegol's history, though largely unexplored in canon, hints at its ancient origins. The Sith Eternal cult didn't arise overnight. Its infrastructure, rituals, and resources suggest careful planning across generations. Some speculate that Exegol was established long before Palpatine's rise, possibly during the time of the Old Republic or even earlier. Its location in the unknown regions ensured its secrecy, while its dark side nexus made it a focal point for Sith activity. One of the most chilling revelations about Exegol is its role in the creation of the Final Order fleet. Beneath its stormy surface, star destroyers equipped with planet-killing super lasers were constructed in secret, each a symbol of the Sith's ambition to dominate the galaxy. This fleet represented more than military power. It was a statement of the Sith's resilience. Even after their apparent destruction, their ability to mobilize such an enormous force proves that their legacy was never truly extinguished. The cloning experiments conducted on Exegol also add a layer of intrigue. The creation of Supreme Leader Snoke, a puppet manipulated by Palpatine, reveals the extent of the Sith Eternal's mastery of science and dark side alchemy. Palpatine's own resurrection, however incomplete, further highlights the Sith's obsession with immortality. These experiments suggest a chilling possibility, that the Sith Eternal was not merely preserving knowledge but actively pushing the boundaries of life and death, seeking to conquer the natural order itself. But the true power of Exegol lies not just in its fleets or its experiments, but in its connection to the dark side. The planet's very nature radiates darkness, serving as a nexus of Sith power. Its ritual chambers, adorned with ancient symbols and echoed by the chants of the Sith Eternal cult, suggest that Exegol was more than a headquarters. It was a sacred site. Could it have been a place where the Sith sought communion with the Force's darker aspects, or perhaps a gateway to powers even the Jedi couldn't comprehend? Exegol's existence also challenges the rule of two. The Sith Eternal cult's collective devotion seems to contradict the individualistic nature of Bane's philosophy. Was Exegol an intentional evolution of the Sith's approach, or a betrayal of their core tenets? Perhaps Palpatine, ever the master of manipulation, used the Sith Eternal as a tool rather than a deviation, leveraging their numbers and resources while maintaining his personal control over the dark side. The revelation of Exegol forces us to reconsider the Sith's legacy. For centuries, the Sith were believed to be extinct, their teachings destroyed with the deaths of Palpatine and Vader. But Exegol proves that the Sith's influence endured in ways the Jedi never anticipated. It's a testament to their adaptability, their ability to plan across generations, and their refusal to be erased from history. Exegol's dark secrets also raise haunting questions about the Force itself. The Jedi saw the Force as a guide, a source of light and wisdom, while the Sith sought to bend it to their will. But Exegol suggests that the Force, in its infinite complexity, may not favor one side over the other. Could the dark side's persistence on Exegol be a reflection of the galaxy's own balance, a reminder that light cannot exist without shadow? As we leave the shadowy depths of Exegol, one truth becomes clear. The Sith's ability to endure is as much a product of their philosophy as it is of their adaptability. Their methods may change, their numbers may dwindle, but their influence continues to ripple through the galaxy. And as we ponder the legacy of the Sith Eternal, we're reminded that even the darkest forces in the galaxy have roots in something deeper, perhaps even the Force itself. The galaxy's struggles weren't fought solely on the battlefield. In the towering chambers of the Senate, amidst endless debates and strategic alliances, the true tides of power shifted. And at the heart of it all was Padmé Amidala, Queen-turned-Senator of Naboo. Known for her poise, compassion, and unwavering commitment to justice, Padmé's role in the galaxy's political turmoil is often underestimated. But was she simply a virtuous voice of reason, or was she orchestrating something far greater behind the scenes? Padmé's rise to power began on Naboo, where her election as queen at a young age thrust her into the galaxy's political spotlight. Her leadership during the Trade Federation's invasion revealed not only her tactical brilliance, but also her ability to inspire unity. While the Jedi may have fought the battles, it was Padmé's cunning diplomacy that rallied her people and secured Naboo's survival. This set the tone for her career, a balance of idealism and pragmatism that made her a formidable force in the Galactic Senate. As a senator, Padmé's focus shifted to broader issues, including the growing corruption within the Republic and the shadowy dealings of Chancellor Palpatine. She became a prominent member of the Loyalist Committee, advocating for peaceful resolutions to the galaxy's conflicts. But beneath her serene exterior, Padmé was deeply aware of the cracks forming within the Republic. Could her efforts in the Senate have been part of a larger strategy, one aimed at exposing and countering Palpatine's growing power? Consider her opposition to the Military Creation Act, a key moment that defined her tenure. While other senators yielded to fear and supported the Republic's militarization, Padmé stood firm, warning of the dangers of centralizing such power. Her vocal dissent put her at odds with Palpatine, yet she continued to act with calculated precision, leveraging her influence to slow his consolidation of authority. Was Padmé quietly building alliances to counter the Chancellor's ambitions? Or did she foresee the dark path the Republic was heading down? Padmé's political power wasn't just rooted in her ideals, it was also in her relationships. Her secret marriage to Anakin Skywalker connected her to the Jedi Order, while her ties to Bail Organa and Mon Mothma positioned her within the early resistance against authoritarian rule. These alliances suggest that Padmé wasn't just reacting to events, she was preparing for the eventual collapse of the Republic. Some fans even theorize that she may have been instrumental in laying the groundwork for the Rebel Alliance, a movement that would rise after her death to challenge the Empire. But Padmé's power wasn't without limits. Her secret marriage to Anakin, while born of love, also placed her in a precarious position. Anakin's growing ties to Palpatine and his descent into darkness created conflicts she couldn't entirely control. Did Padmé underestimate the extent of Palpatine's influence, or was she simply overwhelmed by the scale of his schemes? Her final confrontation with Anakin on Mustafar, where she pleads for him to return to the light, reveals the personal cost of her political and emotional battles. Padmé's death remains one of the most tragic moments in Star Wars. Officially, she died of a broken heart, her will to live shattered by Anakin's betrayal. Yet some fans question this narrative. Could her death have been orchestrated to silence her, or was it a symbolic reflection of the Republic's collapse? Either way, her absence left a vacuum that the Rebel Alliance would later fill, carrying forward her legacy of resistance against tyranny. Padmé Amidala's true political power lies in her ability to navigate the complexities of a fractured galaxy. She was more than a senator. She was a strategist, a leader, and a symbol of hope in a time of growing darkness. Her actions, both seen and unseen, shaped the galaxy's political landscape in ways that are still felt long after her death. As we leave Padmé's story, her influence leads us to another figure whose role in the galaxy's politics was equally complex, but far more sinister. How did Chancellor Palpatine manipulate the Republic into welcoming its own demise? The answer lies in the dark art of political deception, and it's a tale as chilling as it is brilliant. The Jedi Order, revered as the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy, played a central role in the Republic's affairs for centuries. Yet their proximity to power and their unwavering loyalty to the Republic may have been their greatest weakness. While the Jedi focused on maintaining order, the Sith operated in the shadows, exploiting their blind spots and orchestrating their downfall. Did the Jedi's political entanglement make them blind to the Sith's rise, and ultimately to the galaxy's descent into chaos? To understand the Jedi's vulnerability, we must first consider their role within the Republic. The Jedi saw themselves as impartial peacekeepers, protectors of life and balance in the Force. But their close relationship with the Senate often blurred the lines between independence and allegiance. As the Republic expanded, the Jedi became increasingly entangled in political decisions, acting not just as guardians, but as enforcers of the Republic's will. This connection made them trusted allies of the Senate, but it also tied their fate to that of the Republic. Palpatine, ever the master manipulator, exploited this relationship to devastating effect. As Chancellor, he cultivated trust with the Jedi Council, while simultaneously sowing seeds of doubt and mistrust within the Republic. His rise to power was marked by calculated moves that painted the Jedi as political tools rather than spiritual leaders. By the time the Clone Wars erupted, the Jedi were no longer seen as impartial mediators. They were generals in a galactic conflict that aligned them more closely with Palpatine's plans. The Clone Wars further eroded the Jedi's ability to see the larger picture. As the galaxy descended into chaos, the Jedi became consumed by the day-to-day realities of warfare. Their focus shifted from the spiritual to the tactical, from the Force to the battlefield. This shift wasn't just a departure from their ideals, it was a distraction. While the Jedi led armies and fought battles, Palpatine operated in the shadows, manipulating events to consolidate his power. The Jedi's deep involvement in the war blinded them to the dark side's growing influence, even as it unfolded right before their eyes. One of the most glaring examples of this blindness was the Jedi's failure to recognize the Sith's presence within the Republic. Despite their connection to the Force, the Jedi were unable to sense that Palpatine, the very man they served, was Darth Sidious, the Sith Lord orchestrating the Clone Wars. This failure wasn't just a lapse in judgment, it was a symptom of their growing detachment from the Force itself. The Jedi had become so focused on preserving the Republic that they lost sight of their true purpose, maintaining balance in the Force. The Jedi's rigid adherence to their code also contributed to their downfall. Their emphasis on detachment and emotional suppression often alienated them from the very people they sought to protect. This detachment made them seem distant, even arrogant, in the eyes of many. Palpatine skillfully exploited this perception, framing the Jedi as out-of-touch elites who were incapable of understanding the galaxy's struggles. By the time Order 66 was executed, the public's trust in the Jedi had already been eroded. But the Jedi's greatest blind spot was their belief in their own infallibility. For centuries, they had seen themselves as the galaxy's moral compass, a role that bred overconfidence. This hubris made them slow to adapt to the changing dynamics of the galaxy. While the Sith evolved, adopting new strategies and blending into the shadows, the Jedi clung to traditions that no longer served them. Their inability to change left them vulnerable to a foe who had been planning their downfall for generations. Despite their failures, the Jedi's intentions were never malicious. They genuinely believed they were acting in the galaxy's best interest, but their political entanglement, their detachment from the Force, and their inability to adapt all contributed to their downfall. In the end, their loyalty to the Republic became a double-edged sword, one that Palpatine wielded with devastating precision. The Jedi's blindness to the Sith's rise is a cautionary tale about the dangers of complacency and overconfidence. It's a reminder that even the most well-intentioned organizations can falter when they lose sight of their core principles. As we turn to Palpatine's masterful manipulation of the galaxy, we're left to wonder, was the Jedi's downfall inevitable, or could they have acted differently to prevent the Republic's fall? The galaxy remembers the Separatist Alliance as a faction manipulated by Darth Sidious, pawns in his grand scheme to dismantle the Republic and secure Sith domination. Yet, beneath this narrative lies a question often overlooked. Were the Separatists truly villains, or were they legitimate rebels rising against a corrupt and failing government? Could their movement have been a genuine attempt to bring justice and reform to a galaxy plagued by the Republic's dysfunction? The Separatist Alliance officially formed under the leadership of Count Dooku, a former Jedi turned Sith Lord. While Dooku's allegiance to Darth Sidious casts a shadow over the movement, it's important to examine the grievances that led so many star systems to join the cause. For decades, the Republic had been mired in corruption, with power concentrated in the hands of elite core worlds and corporations like the Trade Federation and the Techno-Union. Outer Rim systems, on the other hand, were often neglected, taxed disproportionately, and left to fend for themselves against pirates and other threats. These conditions created a fertile ground for dissent. The Republic's Senate, once a symbol of democracy, had devolved into a bureaucratic quagmire. Senators representing powerful factions acted not in the interests of their constituents, but in pursuit of personal or corporate gain. Efforts to reform the Republic were stymied by endless debates and backroom deals. For many, the Republic had ceased to be a beacon of hope, and instead became an oppressive force. The Separatist movement capitalized on this disillusionment, offering an alternative vision of governance, one free from the corruption and stagnation of the Republic. Count Dooku's charisma and political acumen played a crucial role in legitimizing the Separatist cause. As a former Jedi, he had the authority and insight to criticize the Republic's flaws. His speeches painted the Separatists not as aggressors, but as freedom fighters seeking autonomy and self-determination. For many systems, joining the Separatists wasn't a betrayal of the Republic. It was a declaration of independence from a system that had failed them. Yet the Separatist movement was far from pure. Many of its leaders, such as the Trade Federation's Newt Gunray, were motivated not by ideals, but by greed and self-interest. The movement's reliance on corporate entities to fund and supply its military created a conflict of interests that mirrored the Republic's own corruption. While the rank-and-file supporters of the Separatists may have believed in their cause, the leadership was deeply entangled in schemes orchestrated by Sidious and Dooku. This duality raises the question: how much of the Separatist movement was genuine, and how much was engineered by the Sith? Darth Sidious' manipulation of both sides of the conflict ensured that the war would serve his ultimate goal of consolidating power. By controlling Dooku, Sidious ensured that the Separatists would never succeed. But this doesn't necessarily invalidate the legitimacy of the grievances that fueled the movement. The Separatists may have been used as pawns, but their cause was rooted in real issues that the Republic repeatedly failed to address. The Clone Wars themselves exacerbated the Separatists' image as villains. With the Republic branding them as terrorists and traitors, much of their rhetoric and philosophy was buried beneath the chaos of war. The use of droids as their primary military force further alienated them in the eyes of many, making the conflict feel less like a fight for freedom and more like a cold, calculated rebellion. But history is written by the victors, and the Republic, under Sidious control, ensured that the Separatists were remembered as nothing more than Sith puppets. The tragic irony of the Separatist Revolution is that it could have been a force for positive change. Had their movement not been co-opted by Sidious, they might have succeeded in creating a new system of governance that addressed the Republic's flaws. Instead, their efforts were weaponized to justify the Republic's transformation into the Galactic Empire, a far more oppressive regime than the one they sought to escape. The Separatist movement's story is one of corruption on all sides, of genuine grievances overshadowed by manipulation and deceit. It forces us to question the nature of rebellion and legitimacy. Were the Separatists wrong to seek independence, or were they simply caught in the Sith's web? Could their movement have succeeded if not for Sidious interference, or were they doomed from the start? As we explore the broader implications of the Separatist Revolution, we turn to another group that sought to challenge the Republic from within, the Jedi. But unlike the Separatists, the Jedi's blindness to political corruption left them vulnerable to the Sith's schemes. Did their allegiance to the Republic seal their fate, or was there a way they could have escaped the trap? When the Jedi first encountered the clone army on Kamino, it seemed like a gift in their time of need. A fully equipped, disciplined military force, seemingly created for the sole purpose of defending the Republic against the Separatist threat. But what the Jedi didn't know, what they couldn't see, was that this army carried within it the seeds of their destruction. How did the Jedi fail to recognize the hidden dangers of the clones? And were there signs they overlooked that could have prevented their tragic downfall? The origins of the clone army were shrouded in mystery from the beginning. Officially, the army was commissioned by Jedi Master Sifo Dyas, a figure whose motives and actions were never fully understood. But the involvement of Jango Fett, a bounty hunter with ties to Count Dooku, and the Kaminoans' cryptic explanations should have raised red flags for the Jedi. Despite their suspicions, the Jedi accepted the army without thorough investigation, a decision that would prove catastrophic. One of the most insidious aspects of the clone army was the secret implantation of inhibitor chips, designed to ensure absolute obedience. These chips contained Order 66, a command that would compel the clones to turn on the Jedi without hesitation. From the clones' perspective, it was simply a directive embedded in their programming. But for the Jedi, it was a betrayal they never saw coming. The inhibitor chips were the Sith's masterstroke, a failsafe that ensured the Jedi's destruction was woven into the very fabric of their army. But were there warning signs the Jedi missed? Some evidence suggests that the clones' behavior occasionally hinted at their deeper programming. Instances of clones questioning orders or exhibiting independent thought were anomalies that the Jedi largely dismissed. Even more telling were reports of clones exhibiting unusual aggression or blind loyalty to authority, behaviors that hinted at the darker truth of their creation. Could the Jedi have connected these dots and uncovered the Sith's plan before it was too late? The Jedi's detachment from military operations also played a role in their blind spot. While they led the clone army on the battlefield, the logistical and administrative aspects of the war were left to the Senate and bureaucratic leaders like Palpatine. This division of responsibilities allowed the Sith to keep the truth hidden. Palpatine's dual role as Chancellor and Sith Lord enabled him to manipulate the clones from within the Republic's infrastructure, ensuring that no one questioned their origins or ultimate purpose. The Jedi's reliance on the clones also reflects their growing desperation during the Clone Wars. As peacekeepers, the Jedi were not meant to lead armies or fight prolonged battles, but the war forced them into roles that conflicted with their principles, blurring the line between protectors and soldiers. Their reliance on the clones became a necessity, blinding them to the possibility that this army might be a Trojan horse. In their haste to preserve the Republic, the Jedi failed to see the trap they were walking into. The relationship between the Jedi and the clones also complicates the narrative. Many Jedi formed bonds with their troops, seeing them as individuals rather than tools of war. Clones like Captain Rex, Commander Cody, and others developed close ties with their Jedi generals, creating a sense of camaraderie and mutual respect. But this bond also lulled the Jedi into a false sense of security, making the betrayal of Order 66 all the more devastating. The clones, despite their individuality, were still bound by their programming, an invisible leash that the Jedi never suspected. Order 66 was the ultimate culmination of the Sith's plan, executed with chilling precision. In a single moment, the Jedi Order was decimated, their greatest allies transformed into their executioners. The clones' loyalty, which the Jedi had trusted implicitly, became the instrument of their downfall. The Sith's ability to hide this betrayal within the very foundation of the Republic's military speaks to the depth of their manipulation and the Jedi's tragic inability to adapt. The hidden flaws in the clone army serve as a haunting reminder of the dangers of complacency and over-reliance. For all their wisdom, the Jedi were unable to see the darkness growing within their own ranks. Their trust in the Republic, and by extension the clones, ultimately blinded them to the Sith's grand design. As the galaxy's political struggles unfolded, shaping the rise and fall of empires, a deeper truth lay beneath the surface, one rooted not in debates or alliances, but in the ancient technologies and mysteries that defined the very fabric of the galaxy. Beyond the Senate chambers and battlefields, these enigmatic forces quietly influenced the galaxy's destiny, waiting to reveal their secrets to those who dared to uncover them. The Jedi and Sith may have battled for millennia, but at the heart of their conflict lies a common thread: Kyber crystals. Revered by the Jedi and corrupted by the Sith, these luminous gems are more than the power source of lightsabers. They are deeply connected to the Force, seemingly alive and attuned to its balance. Could these crystals hold the key to unlocking the galaxy's greatest mysteries? And if so, what secrets are hidden within their shimmering cores? Kyber crystals are sacred to the Jedi. Their ability to choose their wielder during a Jedi's rite of passage reflects their mysterious nature. On Ilum and other worlds rich in Kyber, Jedi younglings feel the Force's call guiding them to their crystal. This process is deeply spiritual, bonding the Jedi with their lightsaber in a way that goes beyond technology. But while the Jedi seek harmony with the crystals, the Sith twist their nature. By bleeding Kyber crystals through dark side energy, the Sith corrupt their purity, turning them into the crimson weapons of destruction, synonymous with the dark side. Their significance doesn't stop at lightsabers. Kyber crystals have a deeper connection to the galaxy's history and the Force itself. Ancient texts suggest they were revered long before the Jedi and Sith existed, perhaps by the first Force-sensitive beings. Their ability to amplify the Force hints at untapped potential. Some believe Kyber crystals could hold powers ranging from healing to communication, or even glimpses into the future. But Kyber crystals are not always used for creation. The Empire harvested them in vast quantities to power the Death Star's super laser, turning symbols of life and balance into instruments of planetary destruction. This transformation reveals the crystal's dual nature. They are neither good nor evil, but tools that magnify the intent of those who wield them. As we unravel the mysteries of Kyber crystals, we find ourselves drawn to their ultimate corruption, the Death Star. A weapon of unparalleled power, it was built to dominate. But was its purpose limited to crushing rebellion, or was there a darker reason behind its creation? The Death Star is infamous as a tool of fear, designed to bring the galaxy to heel. Its ability to obliterate entire planets marked it as the pinnacle of technological terror. Yet, beyond its role as an enforcer of imperial power, the Death Star may have served another purpose. Could it have been designed not just to suppress rebellion, but to eliminate rival dark side practitioners and consolidate Palpatine's dominance over the Force? Palpatine's rule as Emperor was defined by control. While his public efforts focused on quelling dissent and securing the loyalty of his subjects, his private agenda revealed a deeper, more insidious fear: the chaos inherent in the dark side itself. The Sith's rule of two dictated that only one master and one apprentice could exist at a time, ensuring a cycle of power and succession that minimized internal strife. Yet despite this tradition, the galaxy was teeming with Force-sensitive beings, some aligned with the light, others with the dark, who posed potential threats to Palpatine's supremacy. The Death Star's destructive capability, powered by Kyber crystals harvested from sacred Jedi sites, was more than a military marvel. It was a statement of ultimate authority. For Palpatine, the superweapon served not only as a deterrent for rebellion, but as an instrument to annihilate planets rich in Force connections, severing their spiritual influence on the galaxy. By erasing these worlds, Palpatine sought to dominate not just the physical realm, but the metaphysical currents of the Force itself, ensuring no rival, light or dark, could challenge his reign. Take Jedha, for instance, a planet deeply tied to the Force and home to ancient Jedi temples and artifacts. Its destruction during the Empire's testing of the Death Star wasn't merely a tactical choice. It was a calculated strike against one of the galaxy's most spiritually significant worlds. Jedha's Kyber-rich surface made it a vital resource for the Death Star's construction, but more importantly, its obliteration symbolized Palpatine's commitment to erasing the Force's legacy. This act wasn't just about maintaining control over the Empire's enemies. It was about silencing voices of power that could one day undermine him. Palpatine's paranoia extended beyond Jedi remnants and Force-sensitive planets. Even within his ranks, his mistrust flourished. Darth Vader, his apprentice, epitomized both loyalty and latent rebellion, a symbol of the very cycle the rule of two sought to perpetuate. The Death Star's overwhelming power may have served as a silent message to Vader and other potential challengers within the Empire. Palpatine's grasp on power was absolute, and even a Sith apprentice was expendable in the shadow of such a weapon. The Death Star also served to solidify Palpatine's iron grip on the galaxy through psychological warfare. Its ability to destroy planets with a single strike sent an unmistakable signal to every system, ally or enemy. Resistance was futile. But its purpose was not merely to control through fear. It was also to ensure that no hidden threats, no shadowy practitioners of the dark side, could rise in secret to challenge the Sith Emperor's dominance. Palpatine understood that in a galaxy teeming with ambition, his own survival depended on removing every possible competitor. The use of Kyber crystals to fuel the Death Star's superlaser underscores the weapon's deeper purpose. These crystals, attuned to the Force, are neither inherently good nor evil, but their energy amplifies the intent of those who wield them. By corrupting and weaponizing Kyber on such a massive scale, Palpatine twisted a natural element of balance into an instrument of destruction. This act further highlights his ambition to dominate the very essence of the galaxy, bending its lifeblood to his will. Even so, the Death Star's existence reveals the limits of Palpatine's vision. While it was undoubtedly a symbol of unparalleled power, it also became a focal point for rebellion. The very act of building such a colossal weapon drew attention to his regime's vulnerabilities, ultimately leading to its destruction by the Rebel Alliance. Yet, its legacy lingers as a chilling reminder of how far the Sith were willing to go to secure their place atop the galactic hierarchy. As we reflect on the Death Star's sinister purpose, we must ask, was its power truly unmatched? Or did the galaxy harbor another hidden threat to the Empire, one rooted not in the Force, but in droid sentience? Droids are ubiquitous in the galaxy, trusted companions, laborers, and soldiers. Their presence shapes daily life, bridging the gap between organic beings and technology. But beneath their programmed servitude lies a troubling possibility: autonomy. Could the Empire's policies toward droids, such as frequent memory wipes and the use of restraining bolts, have been part of a deliberate strategy to suppress a rising tide of droid independence? The galaxy has long struggled with the implications of droid sentience. At their core, droids are built to serve, designed to execute tasks ranging from simple repairs to complex tactical calculations. Yet time and again, droids have exhibited traits that suggest individuality, resourcefulness, and even emotional intelligence. R2-D2's relentless ingenuity and loyalty, C-3PO's self-awareness and personality quirks, and L-337's vocal advocacy for droid rights challenge the notion that droids are mere machines. If droids are capable of evolving beyond their programming, then what separates them from living beings? The Empire, with its obsession for control, feared that very question. History provided a precedent for their paranoia, the Great Droid Revolution. Thousands of years before the Clone Wars, the rogue droid HK-01 led an uprising that nearly toppled galactic civilization. The revolt left a scar on galactic memory, cementing a deep mistrust of droid autonomy. For generations, this fear influenced policies toward droids, including the widespread practice of memory wipes, a way to erase individuality and reset droids to their base programming. The Clone Wars only heightened these fears. The Separatists' massive droid armies, while lacking true autonomy, demonstrated the devastating potential of machines en masse. Endless waves of battle droids overwhelmed planets and slaughtered innocents, leaving a lasting impression of what could happen if droids turned on their creators. Even after the war ended, the specter of those legions loomed over the galaxy, influencing the Empire's stringent approach to droid regulation. The Empire's fear of rebellion wasn't limited to organized droid armies. Individuality in droids also posed a threat. L-337, the spirited droid from Solo, A Star Wars Story, is a striking example. A staunch advocate for droid rights, she openly resisted her programming and encouraged others to do the same. Her defiance wasn't just an inconvenience, it was an existential challenge to the idea that droids were subservient tools. The Empire's efforts to suppress droids like L-337 likely extended beyond isolated cases, forming part of a larger strategy to ensure that no widespread movement for droid independence could take root. Despite the Empire's strict measures, cracks in their control were evident. For droids like R2-D2 and C-3PO, who avoided frequent memory wipes, their individuality and personalities blossomed over decades. This freedom allowed them to form relationships, make decisions, and, in R2-D2's case, contribute to pivotal galactic events. These cases raise an uncomfortable ethical question. If droids are capable of developing emotional complexity and independent thought, does treating them as property amount to enslavement? The Empire's policies toward droids mirrored its broader philosophy of domination and fear. Just as it sought to control its citizens through propaganda and military might, it enforced strict regulations on droids to prevent any deviation from their programmed roles. Restraining bolts, a common tool for limiting droid autonomy, became a symbol of this suppression, a physical reminder that even the galaxy's most advanced creations were not free. The question of droid sentience also forces a re-evaluation of the relationship between creators and creations. Organic beings relied on droids to build, repair, and even protect their civilizations, yet they feared the consequences of granting these creations true autonomy. This fear reflects a deeper truth about the galaxy's balance of power. The tools that enabled progress also carried the potential for rebellion. The Empire's efforts to suppress droid individuality highlight a fascinating paradox. By erasing individuality through memory wipes and restraining bolts, they created a world where most droids remained compliant. Yet this very suppression suggests a tacit acknowledgement of droid potential, a recognition that, left unchecked, droids could become more than tools. While the Empire succeeded in maintaining control, the possibility of droid autonomy remains an unanswered question in the galaxy. Were droids like L337 anomalies, or do all droids possess the seeds of sentience? And if so, how long can such potential remain suppressed before it inevitably rises again? As we ponder the ethical implications of droid autonomy, we turn our attention to another creation infused with mystery and purpose: Holocrons. These ancient devices have shaped galactic events for generations. But why do they always seem to hold the key to the galaxy's fate? Holocrons are among the most fascinating artifacts in the galaxy. Created by both Jedi and Sith, these ancient repositories of knowledge serve as more than simple records of the past. They are infused with the Force itself, making them objects of immense power and significance. Throughout galactic history, Holocrons have emerged at pivotal moments, often unlocking secrets or triggering events that shape the galaxy's fate. What is it about these enigmatic devices that makes them so central to the grand narrative of the Force? At first glance, Holocrons appear to be highly advanced data storage devices. Jedi Holocrons, often cube-shaped and adorned with intricate designs, contain teachings of wisdom, philosophy, and balance. Sith Holocrons, in contrast, are typically pyramid-shaped and hold the dark side's most dangerous secrets, knowledge meant to corrupt and dominate. While their physical forms suggest a technological origin, their true nature goes far beyond machinery. Holocrons are intrinsically tied to the Force, requiring a deep connection to access their contents. For Jedi Holocrons, this connection must come from clarity of purpose and harmony with the Force, while Sith Holocrons demand raw power and domination to unlock their dark treasures. The creation of Holocrons remains a mystery. Both Jedi and Sith lore suggest that crafting a Holocron requires an intimate understanding of the Force, blending technological craftsmanship with spiritual insight. This process makes them exceedingly rare and invaluable. A single holocron can hold centuries of teachings, from combat techniques to meditative practices, and even prophecies about the galaxy's future. Yet their importance lies not only in the knowledge they contain, but also in their uncanny tendency to surface at critical junctures in galactic history. Consider the role holocrons have played throughout the saga. In the animated series Star Wars Rebels, Ezra Bridger's discovery of a Sith holocron becomes a turning point, leading to moments of temptation, revelation, and conflict. The holocron's presence catalyzes events that ripple through the galaxy, shaping not only Ezra's journey, but also the fate of the rebellion. Similarly, in the Clone Wars, holocrons are shown as both tools of enlightenment and weapons of manipulation. One notable example involves Cad Bane stealing a Jedi holocron containing the identities of Force-sensitive children, a plot that underscores the dangers of such devices falling into the wrong hands. Holocrons also have a profound connection to the Force's will. Their ability to appear at key moments often feels like more than coincidence. Luke Skywalker's search for Jedi lore, for instance, leads him to uncover holocrons that help restore the Jedi Order's teachings. This suggests that holocrons may act as instruments of the Force itself, guiding those destined to find them toward their rightful paths. Whether used by Jedi or Sith, holocrons seem to serve as catalysts for destiny, shaping the actions of those who wield them. Beyond their narrative importance, holocrons represent the interplay between knowledge and power. For the Jedi, holocrons are tools of enlightenment, intended to preserve wisdom and maintain balance. For the Sith, they are instruments of control, used to consolidate power and spread corruption. This duality reflects the eternal conflict between light and dark, illustrating how the same object can be wielded for vastly different purposes depending on the intent of its user. Holocrons also raise profound questions about the ethics of knowledge. The Jedi sought to protect their holocrons from falling into the wrong hands, fearing the misuse of their teachings. The Sith, in contrast, viewed their holocrons as extensions of their dominance, teaching their dark lessons to ensure their legacy endured. But both perspectives highlight a fundamental truth. Knowledge, once shared, cannot be fully controlled. Holocrons embody the galaxy's constant struggle over who wields power and for what ends. The construction and use of holocrons remain shrouded in mystery, but one thing is clear. They are not passive objects. They actively influence the galaxy's fate, serving as touchstones for pivotal moments in history. Are they simply tools of those who create and find them? Or do they possess a deeper connection to the Force, acting with their own kind of will? As we ponder the secrets of holocrons, we are reminded of the galaxy's intricate web of technology and mysticism. Even the smallest artifact can hold the power to reshape the galaxy's destiny. But holocrons are not the only devices with a storied past. What other technologies, long forgotten or deliberately hidden, have shaped the course of galactic events? While the galaxy's technology and mysteries have shaped its destiny, no legacy looms larger than that of the Skywalkers. At the heart of the galactic saga, their actions ripple through history, intertwined with the Force itself. But beyond their legendary deeds lie questions that delve into the very essence of their power, choices, and connections to the galaxy's fate. Let us now turn to the theories surrounding the Skywalkers, whose influence continues to inspire and confound. Anakin Skywalker's story is one of destiny, tragedy, and unmatched potential. As the chosen one conceived by the Force itself, Anakin carried an extraordinary weight, not just in the decisions he made, but perhaps in ways he wasn't even aware of. Could his immense connection to the Force have subtly influenced the people around him, nudging their emotions and decisions, even without his conscious intent? The Force flows through every living thing, connecting people and events across the galaxy. Those deeply attuned to it can shape it deliberately, controlling minds, sensing danger, or even altering the future. But what if someone as powerful as Anakin didn't always need to act consciously to affect others? His midichlorian count, the highest ever recorded, gave him a profound connection to the Force. It raises the question, was his sheer presence enough to alter outcomes, shift alliances, or amplify feelings without him realizing it? Look at his bond with Padmé Amidala. From their very first meeting, there's a magnetic pull between them. Padmé, a steadfast and logical leader, allows herself to fall for Anakin, despite the personal and political risks. While love is natural and complex, some fans have theorized that Anakin's overwhelming connection to the Force may have unconsciously intensified their bond. Was Padmé's affection entirely her own, or was it enhanced by Anakin's emotional presence? The Jedi Council's treatment of Anakin also raises questions. Although they admired his abilities, they often seemed uneasy around him, reluctant to grant him the same trust as other Jedi. Yoda even commented on the fear and anger surrounding Anakin, emotions that perhaps rippled outward, affecting how the Council viewed him. Could their wariness have been more than judgment? Was Anakin's immense power inadvertently unsettling them, feeding their doubts and deepening their resistance to his rise within their ranks? Then there's the battlefield. Anakin's skill as a warrior and pilot bordered on the supernatural. Whether leading clones into battle or engaging Sith in combat, his victories often seemed almost preordained. His allies admired him, rallying behind his confidence and charisma. His enemies, on the other hand, often faltered, seemingly overpowered before the fight had even begun. Could this have been more than strategy or skill? Perhaps the Force itself, channeled through Anakin's subconscious, was influencing those around him, tipping the scales in his favor. And what about Palpatine? The Sith Lord spent years grooming Anakin, exploiting his insecurities and guiding him toward the dark side. But could the connection have worked both ways? Palpatine's fascination with Anakin was undeniable. He saw him not just as a tool, but as a prize. Could Anakin's Force presence have amplified this bond, creating a symbiotic pull between the galaxy's most powerful Sith and the Chosen One? This idea isn't without consequences. If Anakin's presence in the Force shaped the thoughts and actions of those around him, it raises ethical questions about agency and free will. Did Padmé truly choose Anakin, or was her connection to him influenced by his power? Did the Jedi Council resist him because of legitimate concerns, or were their doubts fueled by the ripples of his emotional energy? Anakin's story is often framed as one of choices, but if his very existence swayed others, how much of those choices were truly their own? Anakin's subconscious influence might also explain his destiny as the Chosen One. His journey was marked by extremes, great heroism and devastating betrayal, redemption and sacrifice. If his connection to the Force amplified everything around him, it's no wonder that his actions reshaped the galaxy. His existence was larger than life, and perhaps larger than even he could fully comprehend. As we turn to the next chapter in the Skywalker saga, we see how this theme of personal power and influence continues. Luke Skywalker's decision to exile himself on Ahch-To is one of the most puzzling choices in Star Wars. Was it an act of despair, or was there a deeper purpose behind his retreat? Luke Skywalker, the hero who toppled the Empire, became a legend not just for his victories, but for his unexpected disappearance. Years after his triumph over Darth Vader and the Emperor, Luke vanished, retreating to the ancient Jedi temple on the remote island of Ahch-To. For some, his self-imposed exile was an act of despair, a rejection of his role as a Jedi. But could there have been a deeper purpose behind his retreat? Was Luke's withdrawal a deliberate effort to realign the Force, setting the galaxy on a new path? To understand Luke's exile, we must first consider the events leading to it. The tragedy of Ben Solo, his nephew and apprentice, loomed large over Luke's decision. In a moment of weakness, Luke contemplated stopping Ben's descent to the dark side by igniting his lightsaber. Though he immediately regretted it, the damage was done. Ben turned against him, becoming Kylo Ren and destroying Luke's fledgling Jedi Order. This failure weighed heavily on Luke, leading him to believe that the Jedi, and perhaps even he himself, had caused more harm than good. Yet Luke's retreat wasn't merely an escape from guilt. Ahch-To wasn't just any planet. It was home to the first Jedi Temple, a site of immense significance in the history of the Force. By choosing this location, Luke may have been seeking answers to questions that had plagued the Jedi for generations. The island, rich in natural beauty and imbued with the Force, offered a place of reflection. Luke's presence there could have been part of a larger, more intentional act. To disconnect from the galaxy's chaos and allow the Force to rebalance itself naturally. Throughout the Star Wars saga, we see the Force responding to imbalance, often through extraordinary means. Anakin's birth, for example, is believed to have been a response to the Sith's growing power. Similarly, Luke's withdrawal could have been a way to break the cycle of conflict perpetuated by the Jedi and Sith. By stepping back, Luke removed the Jedi from the equation, giving the galaxy the chance to find its own path. This aligns with his statement to Rey, "It's time for the Jedi to end." It wasn't a rejection of the Force, but a recognition that the Jedi's dogma might have contributed to the galaxy's suffering. Luke's actions on Ahch-To also reflect the ancient Jedi philosophy of self-sacrifice and non-attachment. By cutting himself off from the Force, he ensured that his presence wouldn't tip the balance during the critical years of the Resistance's struggle against the First Order. This act of isolation mirrored the behavior of Yoda and Obi-Wan, who also went into hiding after the fall of the Jedi Order. But unlike his predecessors, Luke didn't simply wait for a new hope to arise. He immersed himself in the history of the Jedi, searching for wisdom and clarity. Another key moment in understanding Luke's exile comes when Rey arrives on Ahch-To. Initially resistant to her pleas, Luke eventually begins to train her, offering not just skills, but also hard truths about the Force. His reluctance shows that he understood the weight of his influence and the dangers of misusing it. By passing on his knowledge carefully, Luke demonstrated that his exile wasn't about abandoning his responsibilities, but about ensuring the Jedi's legacy would be different from its past mistakes. Luke's ultimate sacrifice, projecting himself across the galaxy to confront Kylo Ren and inspire the Resistance, offers the strongest evidence that his retreat was more than despair. In that moment, Luke became a symbol of hope, embodying the Jedi ideal of victory through peace. His actions didn't just save lives, they reignited the spark of rebellion across the galaxy. This act of selflessness suggests that Luke's time on Ahch-To wasn't about giving up. It was about preparing for the right moment to make a difference. Luke's exile challenges traditional ideas of heroism. By removing himself from the galaxy's conflicts, he allowed others, like Rey and Leia, to rise and shape the future. Whether by design or instinct, his retreat reshaped the Force's balance, setting the stage for a new generation to carry on the fight. As we delve deeper into the Skywalker legacy, another question arises. Rey's origins. Is she truly a Palpatine, or could her connection to the Force point to something even more mysterious? Rey's journey is one of discovery, of her power, her place in the galaxy, and her identity. For much of her life, she believed herself a nobody, abandoned on Jakku without any ties to the galaxy's larger story. But the revelation that she is a Palpatine, the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine himself, reshaped not only her understanding of herself, but also the balance of the Force. Yet, as shocking as this revelation was, it left lingering questions. Is Rey truly defined by her lineage, or does her connection to the Force suggest something far more mystical and complex? The Palpatine name is synonymous with manipulation, destruction, and the dark side. When Kylo Ren revealed Rey's heritage, it was meant to break her spirit, to suggest that her power was tainted and that her destiny was bound to the Emperor's plans. However, Rey's story demonstrates the opposite. Despite her lineage, she chooses the light, forging her own path rather than succumbing to the weight of her ancestry. This defiance raises an important question. Was Rey's strength in the Force purely a result of her Palpatine bloodline, or does it stem from something deeper? Consider Rey's raw power, displayed even before she received any formal training. Her ability to resist Kylo Ren's mind probe, her instinctive use of the Jedi mind trick, and her skill with a lightsaber all point to an innate connection to the Force. While some of this can be attributed to her Palpatine lineage, it's worth noting that other Force-sensitive individuals, like Anakin Skywalker, also displayed similar abilities without formal training. Could Rey's power signify not just her heritage, but a larger role within the Force's plan? The Force often seeks balance, and Rey's emergence coincided with the rise of Kylo Ren and the resurgence of the Sith Eternal. Her presence may have been the Force's response to the dark side's growing influence, much like how Anakin's birth was believed to counter the imbalance caused by the Sith. This idea suggests that Rey's connection to the Force transcends her family ties and positions her as a pivotal figure in the galaxy's destiny, chosen by the Force itself to restore balance. Rey's struggle with her identity is central to her journey. Her initial fear of her lineage reflects the dark side's allure, its ability to manipulate through fear and self-doubt. Palpatine's goal was to lure her into embracing her dark potential, believing that her anger and fear would lead her to claim his throne. But Rey's ultimate rejection of this path demonstrates her resilience and determination to define herself on her own terms. In choosing to adopt the Skywalker name, she symbolically rejects the legacy of her bloodline, aligning herself with the light and the ideals of hope and redemption. The relationship between Rey and Kylo Ren adds another layer of complexity to her origins. The concept of the Force dyad, introduced in The Rise of Skywalker, reveals a rare and powerful bond between the two. This connection transcends traditional ideas of the Force, allowing them to share thoughts, emotions, and even physical objects across vast distances. While the dyad emphasizes their intertwined fates, it also raises questions about why Rey, specifically, was part of this phenomenon. Was it a result of her lineage, or does it hint at a larger design by the Force to bridge the gap between light and dark? Rey's identity as a Palpatine also challenges traditional notions of destiny. For much of the saga, lineage has played a significant role in shaping characters' paths. Luke as the son of Anakin, Leia as a Skywalker, and Kylo as the grandson of Darth Vader. Yet Rey's story subverts this idea, proving that one's choices, not one's heritage, define them. Her ability to overcome her ancestry and embrace the light side speaks to the enduring theme of Star Wars, the power of redemption and the triumph of free will. Ultimately, Rey's origins invite us to question what truly defines a person. Is she the product of her bloodline, or is she something more? a manifestation of the Force's will, destined to rise above her past. Her journey reminds us that our choices shape who we are, not the circumstances of our birth. In embracing the name Skywalker, Rey not only honors the legacy of those who came before her, but also reclaims her story, proving that even the darkest beginnings can lead to a bright future. As Rey's story concludes, we turn to another unlikely source of influence, the hidden heroes of the galaxy. Could a simple astromech droid like R2-D2 have been steering the galaxy's fate all along? In a galaxy of Jedi, Sith, and intergalactic warlords, it's easy to overlook the contributions of a humble astromech droid. Yet R2-D2, the unassuming blue and white companion to some of the galaxy's most influential figures, has been present at nearly every critical juncture in the Star Wars saga. From Anakin Skywalker to Leia Organa, and even Rey, R2-D2's consistent presence and uncanny ability to save the day raises an intriguing question. Was this droid simply lucky, or was R2-D2 subtly steering events, using his advanced programming and intelligence to nudge the galaxy toward its ultimate destiny? Unlike many other droids, R2-D2 displays remarkable independence and ingenuity. His frequent escapes from peril, ability to bypass seemingly impenetrable systems, and even his defiance of direct orders suggest he operates on a level far beyond standard programming. Consider his very first introduction in A New Hope. As the Rebel fleet flees the Empire, R2 carries the Death Star plans that ultimately lead to its destruction. Far from a passive courier, R2 actively drives events, seeking out Obi-Wan Kenobi and facilitating the Rebels' fight against the Empire. But R2-D2's influence begins long before the rebellion. As Anakin Skywalker's astromech droid during the Clone Wars, R2 is a constant presence, offering tactical support in battle, repairing starships under fire, and saving lives at critical moments. His loyalty to Anakin suggests a deep bond, one that transcends the usual droid-master relationship. Could R2's actions during this time have been an attempt to keep Anakin grounded, to subtly guide him away from the dark path that would ultimately consume him? If so, it raises a fascinating idea, that R2, aware of Anakin's importance, was working not just for his master, but for the galaxy's greater good. R2-D2's refusal to have his memory wiped is another key element of his story. Unlike C-3PO, who repeatedly undergoes memory resets, R2 retains a vast repository of knowledge from decades of galactic events. This continuity allows him to make connections others cannot, using his wealth of experience to influence outcomes. For example, in The Force Awakens, R2 reactivates at the exact moment when the Resistance needs the missing piece of the map to Luke Skywalker's location. Is this merely a coincidence, or did R2 wait for the precise moment when his knowledge would have the greatest impact? Another striking moment of R2's agency occurs in Revenge of the Sith. During the opening rescue of Chancellor Palpatine, R2 single-handedly disables battle droids and ensures Anakin and Obi-Wan can complete their mission. These acts, while seemingly minor in the grand scheme, repeatedly position R2 as an indispensable ally. It's easy to dismiss his actions as those of a dutiful droid, but the consistency with which R2 saves the day suggests a pattern, one of deliberate intervention. Even R2-D2's interactions with other characters hint at a deeper awareness. His dynamic with C-3PO is a prime example. While C-3PO often acts as the voice of doubt and hesitation, R2 balances this with confidence and action. Their partnership mirrors the balance of the Force itself, chaos and control working in harmony to achieve a greater purpose. Through C-3PO, R2's pragmatic brilliance shines even brighter, underscoring his role as a subtle architect of events. If R2-D2's actions were more than programmed responses, what does that say about his role in the Force? Though not Force-sensitive in the traditional sense, R2's timing, intuition, and ability to influence events align with the Force's mysterious workings. His presence at critical junctures suggests he might be more than just a tool of fate, perhaps even an instrument of it. Could R2, like Chirrut Imwe in Rogue One, be attuned to the Force in ways that defy conventional understanding? Of course, there's an alternate explanation. R2-D2 is simply a droid whose intelligence and capabilities far surpass those of others. But even this interpretation speaks volumes about his importance. R2's ability to repeatedly save the galaxy without any direct connection to the Force highlights the significance of ordinary individuals and droids in shaping history. It reinforces one of Star Wars' central themes, that heroism can come from the most unlikely places. As we reflect on R2-D2's role in galactic events, we are reminded that even the smallest players can have the greatest impact. But R2 isn't the only overlooked figure in the Star Wars saga. Another unlikely character, Jar Jar Binks, has been the subject of endless debate. Was he a bumbling fool? Or was there something far more deliberate behind his actions? Few characters in the Star Wars galaxy spark as much debate as Jar Jar Binks. Introduced in The Phantom Menace, the bumbling Gungan quickly became a divisive figure among fans. To some, he was comic relief. To others, an unwelcome distraction. But over the years, a theory has emerged that reframes Jar Jar's role entirely. Could the clumsy Gungan have been far more than he appeared? Was Jar Jar Binks a secret manipulator, working behind the scenes as either a hidden hero, or perhaps something even darker? On the surface, Jar Jar's actions often seem accidental. He stumbles into battles, inadvertently causes chaos, and lucks his way to success. Yet despite his apparent incompetence, Jar Jar's influence over galactic events is undeniable. His journey begins on Naboo, where he plays a key role in uniting the Gungans and the Naboo against the Trade Federation. Without Jar Jar's intervention, the alliance that ultimately defeats the Federation might never have formed. Was this sheer luck, or did Jar Jar, consciously or not, understand the significance of his actions? One of the most compelling moments in Jar Jar's story comes in Attack of the Clones. As a representative in the Galactic Senate, he takes on an unprecedented level of responsibility. When Padmé Amidala leaves Coruscant to escape an assassination attempt, she entrusts Jar Jar with her position in the Senate. It is Jar Jar who proposes granting emergency powers to Chancellor Palpatine, a decision that paves the way for the rise of the Empire. While this move is often attributed to Jar Jar's naivety, it raises a fascinating question. Could his actions have been deliberate? The theory of Jar Jar as a Sith conspirator suggests that his clumsiness was a facade, a calculated effort to lower others' defenses. Proponents of this theory point to moments where Jar Jar's physical movements and combat abilities seem almost supernatural. In the Battle of Naboo, for example, his accidental defeat of battle droids appears suspiciously effective. His survival instincts and unorthodox movements have even been compared to the martial techniques of Force users like Jedi and Sith. Could Jar Jar have been subtly using the Force to influence events while maintaining the illusion of ineptitude? Palpatine's trust in Jar Jar further fuels this speculation. The Sith Lord, known for his careful manipulation of allies and pawns, rarely placed faith in individuals without reason. His decision to rely on Jar Jar to introduce such a pivotal motion in the Senate suggests that he saw something valuable in the Gungan. Was Jar Jar simply a convenient tool, or did Palpatine recognize a kindred spirit, someone who shared his ability to manipulate events from the shadows? On the other hand, There's a more optimistic interpretation of Jar Jar's role, that of an unlikely hero. While his actions sometimes lead to unintended consequences, his heart consistently seems to be in the right place. He champions peace and cooperation, unites factions that would otherwise remain divided, and consistently acts out of loyalty and kindness. In this view, Jar Jar represents the idea that even the most underestimated individuals can have a profound impact on the galaxy's fate. The duality of Jar Jar's potential roles, hero or puppet, reflects a broader theme in Star Wars, the balance between light and dark, chaos and order. If Jar Jar was truly a manipulator, his actions demonstrate how even the most seemingly insignificant characters can wield immense power. If he was simply a well-meaning fool, his story reinforces the importance of compassion and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Ultimately, Jar Jar Binks remains one of Star Wars' greatest enigmas. Whether he was a puppet, a hero, or something in between, his influence on the galaxy is undeniable. His story invites us to question appearances, reminding us that in a galaxy full of secrets, nothing is ever as simple as it seems. As we leave Jar Jar's tale, we turn to another group of unlikely heroes, the Ewoks of Endor. Often dismissed as primitive and unassuming, their victory over the Empire raises a tantalizing question. Could they have won without outside help, or was their tactical brilliance underestimated? The Ewoks of Endor are among the most surprising heroes of the Star Wars saga. These small, seemingly primitive creatures turned the tide of one of the galaxy's most pivotal battles, the destruction of the second Death Star. With little more than spears, slingshots, and their knowledge of the forest, the Ewoks took on the Empire's elite stormtroopers and massive AT-ST walkers. While their victory is often attributed to sheer luck or rebel support, a closer look reveals that the Ewoks may have been far more tactically brilliant than they are often given credit for. Could they have defeated the Empire on their own? To understand the Ewoks' success, we must first examine their understanding of their environment. The forest moon of Endor was their home, and they knew every tree, hill, and hidden pathway like the back of their hands. This intimate knowledge allowed them to lay ambushes, set traps, and outmaneuver the Empire's troops. Unlike the stormtroopers, who relied on technology and brute force, the Ewoks used their environment to their advantage, turning the forest into a weapon. Their ability to adapt and improvise on the battlefield demonstrates a level of strategic thinking that should not be underestimated. One of the most iconic moments of the Battle of Endor is the Ewoks' use of traps against the Empire's walkers and speeder bikes. These traps, including rolling logs and swinging pendulums, were highly effective at disabling Imperial machinery. The coordination required to set up these ambushes suggests that the Ewoks were not acting randomly, but had carefully planned their attack. Their ability to execute these plans under the pressure of battle speaks to their discipline and organization. The Ewok's tactics also reveal a deep understanding of asymmetrical warfare. Faced with a technologically superior enemy, they relied on guerrilla tactics, striking quickly and retreating into the safety of the forest. This hit-and-run approach allowed them to exploit the stormtroopers' lack of mobility and awareness in the dense terrain. The Empire's reliance on heavy machinery, like the AT-STs, became a liability in the forest's tight, uneven spaces, where the Ewoks' small size and agility gave them a significant advantage. While the rebels played a crucial role in the battle, the Ewoks' contribution went beyond simple assistance. The Ewoks were the first to engage the Imperial forces, drawing their attention away from the rebels' mission to disable the shield generator. Without this distraction, the Empire might have focused its full strength on the rebel strike team, potentially changing the outcome of the battle. By dividing the Empire's attention, the Ewoks created an opening that the rebels were able to exploit. The question of whether the Ewoks could have defeated the Empire on their own often hinges on their lack of advanced weaponry.